I've never been diagnosed with ADHD or anything similar, but as those who know me will agree, I tend to get quite easily distracted, as well as sometimes getting quite fanatical about things. As a former oboist, for example, I've been known to stop and analyse the playing of other woodwind players in movie soundtracks, TV shows, and on the radio. Once, while getting an MRI for suspected breast cancer, don't worry, it wasn't, I even joked to the radiologist that if they played me some oboe music while I was inside the giant magnet machine, I might be able to tell them who was playing just by their sound. I did. I'm like that with other things too. Unusual flora and fauna when I'm out on a walk, or I geek out over some old computer hardware that's either super rare or I remember fixing in my early 20s. Because fixing old Macs purchased from a house clearance specialist owned by a glorious old Hasidic gentleman in Stamford Hill, London, before selling them on to my fellow music students at GSMD was one of the ways that I earned extra pennies at uni. And then, of course, there's cars. If it's rare, or different, or unusual, or out of place, you'll know I'll spot it. I've been known to wait to talk to the owners of original Land Rovers that I've happened to spot in Portland, and I've waved my love to a Morris Minor pickup that's in the town I live, which got sold earlier this year and I've never forgiven myself for not buying. And also I sat behind an Escort Mark II Mexico on the back of a trailer, driving up the interstate just because it was an Escort Mark II Mexico. This ability to spot things has also been quite useful in my day job. It's how I spotted a prototype Range Rover plug-in hybrid at my local mall in Bristol back in 2011. It's how I've spotted many semi-camouflaged prototype cars driving on the public highway. And it's how, last Sunday, my Sunday brunch was interrupted by a car that shouldn't even be in the US. A couple of friends from out of town were passing through, wanted to meet, so I agreed to meet for a physically distant spot of brunch outside a local bakery. We'd turned up with our masks on, got our orders in, had picked up our food, and were sitting 6 feet apart around an outside patio table when my attention was grabbed by this. A Mercedes-Benz EQC electric SUV wearing a South Carolina-issued manufacturer plate, parked right next to my partner's Chevy Bolt EV. Suffice to say, my long-suffering friends were gracious enough for me to stop mid-conversation, dash off and snap a few photos. So, thank you to you both. This was quite a spotting. Why? I'm going to explain, as well as detail why I think this sighting means that Mercedes-Benz could be bringing this all-electric crossover to market in North America after all. While Mercedes-Benz originally unveiled the EQC in 2018, promising it would launch as a 2019 model year car in some markets, it's a car that, at least according to Mercedes-Benz's most recent discussions on the matter, has been dropped by the brand for a North American launch. Let's go over some history. Mercedes-Benz originally unveiled the car in production form at the 2018 Paris Motor Show, announcing plans to begin production and sales in late 2019. But it pushed that back for the US market. First, it was meant to launch in late 2019 as a 2020 model year car. Then, for reasons that aren't still 100% clear, although we do suspect it had something to do with demand in Europe and the need for Mercedes-Benz to sell a specific number of electric cars there or face heavy fines for non-compliance, Mercedes-Benz pushed the EQC back, stating that it would arrive as a 2021 model year car in North America. But then, in February this year, the company announced that it would not be offered in the United States, quote, for now, stating that the Mercedes-Benz EQS, a car that's due to go on sale this fall in North America as a 2022 model year car, would spearhead the brand's electric vehicle push in North America. Part of the reason many of us in the automotive press thought that the EQC was being ignored by Mercedes-Benz North America was the gaffe, or perhaps Freudian slip, made by the automaker during the official EQC event, at which it stated that the EQC's range would be about 200 miles, 321 kilometers per charge, real world. This figure was unusually low, especially as the company was simultaneously quoting a range of 450 kilometers, which is 279 miles in Europe. And given the market segment that Benz fits into, premium luxury cars, offering a vehicle to North American buyers with such an abysmal range would, by industry standards, have surely been met with cries of laughter. Mercedes-Benz later said the 200-mile figure was off and that the media should ignore it. But the reality might have been that that figure was closer to real world than anyone at Benz was comfortable admitting. You see, the original range quote for Europe was on the overly optimistic NEDC test cycle, and as Clean Technica noted at the time, EPA range figures, which are far closer to real-world test cycles, have historically sat at around 70% of whatever the NEDC test said they should be. And 70% of 279 is just about 195. Part of that range, of course, is down to the car's smaller 80 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack, which sounds like a decent size, but then if you consider the size of the car and all of that premium interior and the car's overall shape, well, it's never going to be a particularly efficient vehicle. And as a side note, the pack is far smaller than the 108 kilowatt-hour that you're going to find in the EQS, one reason that the latter has a longer range per charge. At the start of last year, the EQC would have been in a marketplace that was far less competitive. The Model Y was just getting on its feet, the ID.4 and Mustang Mach-E were still awaiting official launch, and the e-tron was rolling off the production line destined for North America in smallish numbers. But now, the market is a lot more competitive, and with the EQC likely to be far more expensive than all of the other models I've just mentioned, it's no wonder that Mercedes-Benz rethought its original plans. So why then did an EQC drop by my Sunday brunch? And why was it wearing a South Carolina manufacture plate, with no camouflage inside or out, based on what I could see? To start, let's look at the "for now" part of Mercedes-Benz's original statement on the future of the EQC. While I suspect the EQC was dropped for North American launch due to concerns over range, as well as demand in Europe, many took that statement to mean that it would never come to North America at all, especially when Benz said that the EQS would launch the EQ brand push for North America. But it's important to remember here that "for now" isn't the same as stating categorically that the car would never come. Second, I believe that since the EQC is well known in most of the world and close enough to the GLC in its design that only really nerdy people like me would spot it in the wild, I think Mercedes-Benz decided to hide this car in plain sight. It's not uncommon for automakers around the world to import models from other markets into countries where the car may not be currently on sale, if only to help them get more global testing. The manufacturer plates on this car back up the assumption that it is a Mercedes-Benz owned vehicle, as only manufacturer plates can be obtained by manufacturers. Which brings me to the purely speculative part of this video. In fact, pretty much everything from this point on is speculation, but I hope in watching you'll be able to follow my logic pathways and conclude, like I have, that the EQC is probably coming to North America at last. So why those South Carolina plates? Well, Mercedes has a production facility in South Carolina where it's going to be producing the all-electric eSprinter for the North American market, as well as perhaps other EVs. It may be as good a place as any for that car and its current driver to be based. Mercedes-Benz is also now based in Atlanta, Georgia, which is just the next state over from South Carolina. So why then was this car on the literal other side of the country at a bakery on the western suburbs of Portland? Well, I have an answer for that too. While Mercedes-Benz might have headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, it, like many other automakers, has offices elsewhere around the US. Given this part of the world is home to Silicon Forest, which is where companies like Nike, Intel and others all have headquarters, and plenty of other companies have tech centers, it's conceivable that the EQC was in town visiting either a partner site or a tech center that's not talked about all that publicly. Or perhaps it was in town visiting Daimler Trucks North America, a company which of course shares a common parent with Mercedes-Benz, Daimler. How did it get here? Well, of course the choices are on the back of a transporter or under its own power. I would love to know if anyone spotted it on the road. Let me know in the comments below if you have. But since it has manufacturer plates on, I think it probably drove here. It wasn't clear from first glance if this was a US spec vehicle or a European spec vehicle, although I believe from the taillights, I couldn't see any amber in them, which would have been a requirement for a European spec vehicle, that this is indeed a pre-launch North American car. And no, sadly, I didn't get a chance to look at the charge inlet, which would of course have told me instantly if we were looking at a US or European spec car. Nevertheless, even if it was a European model, it still could have arrived under its own power, as you can buy mechanical connectors to swap between a US CCS charging inlet and a European one. Finally, to the big question. Is this a hint that the EQC is coming to the US? I think it is. Obviously, in preparing this video, I reached out to Mercedes-Benz for a statement and so far have heard nothing back, which is normally indicative of a company not wanting to admit to, or in fact deny, what you're asking them. That said, many of Mercedes-Benz North American press team are currently out of their office for the Monterey Car Week, so if it is coming to North America, I'm guessing the EQC may have been given a bit of a battery pack boost. A road trip would have been great for testing it, and the original quoted range for this model on the EPA test cycle is woefully inadequate for most people's luxury SUV requirements. With the original pack, it would have been fine for a more affordable runabout, but not a car that's well into Tesla Model Y performance territory in terms of expected pricing. We know Mercedes-Benz already has a larger next-generation battery pack in the EQS, and it's not too far of a reach to expect that battery pack will find its way into other vehicles from the brand. A 108 kilowatt-hour pack would give the EQC a far more acceptable real-world range for this target market, so I'm hopeful that that is maybe what we saw. A road tryst from one side of the country to the other would be a great way of testing a larger pack. But since I can't prove any of this and Benz hasn't returned our emails, we're just in the dark, like everyone else. Do you like the EQC? Maybe you're in a market where they're sold and you have one. Or would you like to be able to buy one in North America if given the chance? Let me know below. That's it for today. If you like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and our two other channels, Transport Evolved Take 2 and Transport Evolved Shorts. I know that while a fair few of you are already subscribed to all of them, please do subscribe if you aren't already. And also, make sure you hit the bell and help us out. Let us know below what you thought of the video, and if you're someone who doesn't like the YouTube comments section, who does, then why not continue this on our Discord server? It is free, and I'll make sure that we leave the link below. Thanks on behalf of the entire TE crew go out to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month Patreons. Special thanks to our $50 a month patrons, that's David Janikula, Andrew Martin, Guido Drahoa, Brophy Wolf, Tazla in the Gong, Paul Conway, Sean Ueda, Gordon C, Regine Fellows, Anonymous Freak, Jim Burness, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Laura Sanborn, Rory Litwin and Denny Hyde, and our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters. They are John Lyons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback, Will Graham, Ellery Hennesley, and Ian. If you'd like to join the ranks of wonderful supporters, you'll find links below to Patreon, Bitcoin, and Ko-fi, and of course you can also buy your very own TE swag from our Redbubble store. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving!